If you're a woman over 60, chances are you've lived through a few love stories. Some that filled your heart with joy, and others that left you wondering if it was worth the trouble. At this stage in life, we've learned a few things. That peace of mind is priceless, and that companionship should never come at the cost of our dignity or happiness. Now, I want to say something that might sound a little bold. Just because a man walks into your life doesn't mean he belongs there. The truth is, not every man brings value, and not every relationship is worth the energy it takes to hold it together. That's why today, I want to gently and truthfully talk with you about 7 types of men that wise women, and especially women over 60, should walk away from. Not out of bitterness or fear, but out of self-respect and wisdom. Because by now, you've earned the right to choose peace over pressure. You've earned the right to say, no, thank you, to any relationship that drains your joy. Now, some of these men may sound familiar. You might have dated one. You might have married one. And who knows, you might still be trying to forget one. But no matter your story, I hope today's conversation reminds you of your worth and gives you permission to protect it. Let's get into it. Type 1. The conversational steamroller, also known as the know-it-all. Let's start with a man most of us have met, or endured, at some point in our lives. I call him the conversational steamroller. Others call him the know-it-all. Whatever name you give him, the experience is the same. You feel like you're being talked at, not to. You'll recognize this type almost immediately. He's the one who asks you a question, but never pauses long enough to hear your answer. He might start with something like, hey, have you ever read about ancient Egypt? Or, do you know how Medicare really works? But he's not really asking. He's warming up his vocal cords for a monologue. You'll smile politely. You'll try to engage. But within seconds, it's clear. He's not having a conversation. He's delivering a lecture. He's read 2 articles and half-watched a documentary once, and now he's ready to teach the class. About anything. Everything. Even things you personally lived through. You might mention raising kids, and suddenly, he's telling you about childhood development theories from a podcast he heard while driving to Home Depot. And the truth is, it's exhausting. It's not just the talking. It's the dismissal. The way your experience is constantly overshadowed by his need to dominate the discussion. You start to feel invisible, unheard, like a backdrop for his voice, not a partner in the moment. And here's the real harm. Over time, you begin to question whether sharing your thoughts is even worth it. You shrink, just a little. You speak less, just a little. And slowly, your world becomes smaller, not because of your age, but because the man sitting across from you refuses to share the space. Now, some folks will say, oh, that's just how men are. I don't buy that. That's not how good men are. That's how insecure men act when they don't know how to connect. Instead of showing curiosity, they try to prove superiority. And that is not partnership. That's performance. It's not about intelligence. Smart men can be wonderful conversationalists. It's about ego. It's about whether he believes he can learn from you or whether he thinks he already knows it all. Let me tell you something important. You deserve to be heard. Fully, clearly, with attention and respect. Your stories matter. Your voice matters. And a man who interrupts, over-explains, or constantly corrects, that man is not listening to connect. He's listening to compete. And let me ask you this. Do you really want to spend your time, your precious time, listening to someone who never asks how you feel? Someone who sees conversation as a one-way street with his name on every sign? At this stage in life, we need more than noise. We need mutual understanding. A partner who pauses, who listens, who values your insight as much as his own. So if you find yourself with a man who turns every moment into a speech, who never leaves space for your thoughts, it's okay to say, no, thank you. You've earned your voice. You've earned your peace, and you deserve a man who treats conversation like a shared table, not a spotlight. Let the steamrollers roll on without you. Type 2, the walking emergency, the man in constant chaos. Now let's talk about another man who drains your energy without even realizing it. I call him the walking emergency. You might know him as the man in constant chaos. He shows up to lunch late again. And this time it's because his GPS failed, or his neighbor blocked his driveway, or the pharmacy gave him the wrong pills. Last week, it was his credit card being hacked. Before that, he missed your call because he forgot to charge his phone. The week before that, his water heater broke, his bank account got frozen, and the dog ran away. There is always something. Always a story. Always an excuse. At first, you might feel sympathy. Life happens, right? We all get thrown off balance sometimes. But with this man, it's all the time. He's not just disorganized, he's disoriented by default. And guess who ends up doing the emotional heavy lifting? You. You'll find yourself calming him down, reminding him of appointments, checking in to make sure he's okay. Pretty soon, you're not dating a man, you're managing one. Now, in many cases, this kind of man is coming out of a long marriage, often widowed or recently divorced, and during that marriage, someone else, usually his wife, handled the details of life. She paid the bills, scheduled the appointments, remembered birthdays, and now that she's gone, he's adrift. And I do feel for that. I truly do. But here's the thing. It's not your job to become his new life manager. You see, there's a big difference between helping someone and carrying them. One is compassionate. The other is codependent. And if you're constantly stepping in to clean up his messes, fix his schedule, or calm his storms, you're not in a partnership. You're in a rescue mission. And I'll tell you what rescue missions do. They wear you down. Slowly. Quietly. You'll stop sleeping well. You'll feel your shoulders tighten. You'll start wondering why you're so tired after every phone call or dinner. It's because you're absorbing someone else's stress. And let's be honest here. When someone lives in chaos, it's not just bad luck. It's often a pattern, a lack of responsibility, a failure to grow up even after 6 or 7 decades on this earth. You deserve a man who brings calm, not crisis. A man who can stand on his own 2 feet, manage his own calendar, and take care of his own life. Not because he's perfect, but because he respects your time, your energy, and your emotional health. So if you find yourself constantly adjusting your life to make room for his disorganization, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say, I hope you figure things out, but I'm not the one who's going to do it for you. You've already done your share of caretaking in this life. You don't need another project. You need peace. And believe me, peace never shows up late, full of excuses and blaming everyone else. Type 3, the chameleon, the man who changes around other people. This next one is a little tricky. On your own, when it's just the two of you, maybe having coffee on a Sunday morning, or taking a walk in the park, he seems thoughtful, grounded, maybe even a little charming. He makes eye contact, listens when you talk, and says all the right things. You start thinking, maybe there's something here. But then, he meets your friends, or your kids, or even just a group of strangers at a restaurant, and suddenly, it's like you're sitting next to a completely different man. He gets loud, overbearing, tries too hard to be funny, talks over people, name drops, tells stories that don't match who he was when it was just you and him. It's like he goes into performance mode, and it's uncomfortable to watch. At first, you might try to explain it away. He's just nervous, or he's trying to make a good impression. But over time, you start to feel anxious whenever someone new is around. You find yourself hoping he'll behave, bracing for what version of him is going to show up. And let me tell you something. When you start bracing, you're not in a relationship. You're in survival mode. The truth is, a man who constantly shifts who he is based on who's watching isn't being real. And he's not being respectful. Not to you and not to himself. You deserve consistency. You deserve authenticity. Not a man who wears a different mask depending on the company. And there's a deeper layer to this. When a man constantly changes in social situations, he's not just being awkward. He's trying to control the narrative. He wants to be liked, admired, even envied. And that comes from insecurity, not confidence. You ever notice how someone who's truly confident doesn't need to be the loudest voice in the room? They're comfortable in silence. They're consistent in private and in public. That's the kind of man who brings peace, the one who doesn't need to put on a show. I'll share something personal here. Years ago, I knew a woman, lovely, graceful, the kind of woman who lit up a room just by being herself. She started seeing a man who seemed perfect when they were alone. He said all the right things, but every time they went to a family dinner or a party, he'd become someone else. He'd make inappropriate jokes, interrupt people, dominate the conversation. She'd leave events feeling embarrassed and tense. Eventually, she told me, I realized I was holding my breath every time we were in public. That stuck with me. Because relationships shouldn't make you hold your breath. They should let you exhale. So if you're dating someone who's great in private, but unpredictable in public, someone you can't trust to represent themselves or you with respect, that's not a minor issue. That's a red flag with flashing lights. You deserve a man who is steady, sincere, and safe to bring into all areas of your life, not just the quiet, controlled ones. Don't settle for someone who only shows up as his best self when no one else is watching. You deserve the real version, all the time. Type 4, the age gap hunter, the man obsessed with younger women. Now this one might sting a little, because it's so common and so frustrating, especially for wise, beautiful women over 60 who still want love, connection, and maybe even romance. I call this man the age gap hunter. He's the guy who's pushing 70, maybe more, but his dating preferences are stuck somewhere around age 35. You'll find him online looking for women born in the 80s or even the 90s. You'll hear him say things like, women my age just don't take care of themselves, while ignoring the fact that he hasn't been to a dentist in 6 years and owns 3 pairs of pants, all cargo. This man seems to believe that women at a certain age expire, that once you hit 50 or 60, your value drops off a cliff. But men? Oh, they just keep getting better, like wine. Or so they think. You might laugh or feel a little offended, and understandably so, because this mindset is not only insulting, it's delusional. It's built on outdated ideas about beauty, youth, and worth, and it reveals something important about the man holding those beliefs. He doesn't see women, especially women his own age, as full, radiant, evolving human beings. He sees them as status symbols, accessories, something to validate his masculinity. And let me tell you, a man who sees women that way is not capable of true love. He's only capable of chasing fantasies. And that's no foundation for a relationship. Now don't get me wrong. Real love can absolutely happen between people with an age gap. Sometimes 2 souls connect, and the numbers just don't matter. But I'm not talking about love. I'm talking about preference. When a man consistently avoids women his own age, not because of connection, but because of appearances, that's not romantic. That's rejection disguised as taste. And the worst part? If he does show interest in a woman his own age, he acts like he's doing her a favor, like dating someone within his generation is some kind of charitable act, as if the Nobel Committee should show up at any moment with a medal for his bravery. It's laughable and sad, because what he doesn't realize is this: real women, real grown women, are not here to stroke an old man's ego. We are here to be seen, heard, respected, and cherished. And when you're with a man like this, even if he says the right things, deep down you'll always feel replaceable. Because in his mind, youth is the prize, and you're not supposed to compete with that. But guess what? You don't have to. Because what you carry, wisdom, depth, experience, grace, resilience, can't be faked, bought, or replaced. That's the kind of beauty that grows with time, not fades. So if a man can't see that, let him go chase his Jessicas and Madisons. Wish him well, and move on. You're not his fallback. You're not a lesson. You're the standard. And the right man will know that the minute he sees you. Type 5. The unfinished man. The one who still hasn't figured life out. Let's talk about a type of man that might surprise you. Because on the surface, he doesn't seem bad. He's not loud. He's not mean. He might even come across as kind or soft-spoken. But look a little deeper, and you'll find a truth that's hard to ignore. He's a grown man who still hasn't finished becoming one. He's what I call the unfinished man. You'll recognize him by the patterns. He's in his mid-60s, maybe older, and yet he's still struggling with the basics. His finances are a mess. His health is unmanaged. He's in conflict with family, hasn't spoken to his sister in 20 years, and blames her for it. Or maybe he's been married 3 times and every ex-wife was crazy. He's got a string of loose ends behind him and no real desire to tie them up. Now listen, we all have our stuff. Life doesn't leave any of us untouched. We all carry scars, regrets, and maybe a few stories we'd rather not tell. That's human. But the difference with this man is, he's never taken responsibility for any of it. He's coasted through life, blaming the system, his ex, his childhood, the government, anyone but himself. And here's where it gets tricky. He seems like someone you could help. You think, maybe he just needs some structure, some encouragement. Maybe I could help him get back on track. And that's where we fall into the trap. Because women, especially those of us who've raised kids, managed households, and carried the emotional weight of others for decades, we're natural caretakers. It's in our bones to nurture, to guide, to fix. But a man who has made it all the way into his 60s or 70s without learning how to manage his own life isn't looking for a partner. He's looking for a savior. And if you're not careful, you'll become his personal project manager, therapist, and life coach, all rolled into one. Suddenly, you're organizing his prescriptions, reminding him to pay bills, calling his daughter to smooth things over, helping him find a new doctor, a new job, a new purpose. But here's the hard truth. If he hasn't figured it out by now, chances are he doesn't want to. And you've already done the hard work. You've spent years keeping others afloat. You've earned your rest, your peace, your joy. You didn't come this far in life just to play the role of someone else's support system, especially not for a man who's been skipping the work. A healthy relationship is 2 people walking alongside each other, not one pulling the other uphill while he drags his feet. So if you see these signs, constant disorganization, emotional immaturity, family feuds that never seem to end, or a man who still blames everyone but himself, take a step back. Ask yourself, do I want to spend the next 10 years trying to fix what someone else refused to face for the last 50? It might sound harsh, but you are not a rehabilitation center. You are a whole, wise, grounded woman. And you deserve a man who's done the inner work too. Not perfectly, not without flaws, but someone who's been willing to look in the mirror, take ownership, and grow. If he hasn't done that by now, chances are he's not going to start just because you came along. And you, my friend, are not responsible for finishing what someone else never started. Type 6. The ghost of yesterday. The man living in the past. This one sneaks up on you. Because at first, it doesn't seem like a problem. In fact, it might even be charming. He tells stories, reminisces, talks about the good old days with a twinkle in his eye. He remembers the music, the cars, the way things used to be. And you think, that's sweet. But soon you realize something. He doesn't just remember the past. He lives in it. Every conversation circles back to how things were. Every opinion is rooted in the way it used to be. He's suspicious of new ideas, resentful of the world changing around him. You try to talk about something happening now. He sighs and changes the subject. You mention something you're excited about, and he rolls his eyes. Maybe you suggest a new restaurant, a different kind of movie, a fresh idea, and he shuts it down with a quick, "Nah, I don't do that." You begin to realize this man isn't just nostalgic, he's stuck. And here's the painful part. When someone is stuck in the past, there's no room for a future. Not with you, not with anyone. Because every time life asks him to show up in the present, he retreats to yesterday, where he felt safer, stronger, more in control. Now don't get me wrong, it's beautiful to cherish memories, to look back on a full life and honor the journey. But when a man uses the past to avoid the present, to avoid growth or vulnerability or connection, that's not memory. That's fear. And fear, my friend, makes a poor foundation for love. Think about the kind of partner you deserve now. Someone who embraces the life you still have ahead of you. Someone who believes, truly believes, that joy doesn't have an expiration date. That wonder doesn't end after retirement. That the best days aren't necessarily behind us. They might just be waiting for us to say yes. But the man who's living in the past, he's already said no. He's closed the door, locked it, and is sitting inside with a box of old trophies, wondering why the world doesn't look like 1974 anymore. And that's not your burden to carry. You deserve someone who remembers the past, but doesn't live there. Someone who's still curious, still open, still willing to grow. Even if they're a little slow to try new things, they try. They show up in the present. They meet you where you are, because real love happens in the now, not in a scrapbook, not in a memory, but right here, in conversations, shared meals, quiet evenings, and new beginnings. So if he can't let go of yesterday, then lovingly let him stay there. And you keep walking forward towards something real, something warm, something waiting just up ahead. Type 7. The quiet controller, the man who seems kind, until you start shrinking. This one is harder to spot. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't lose his temper. He doesn't storm out of rooms or throw insults around. In fact, at first glance, he might seem like the calmest, most agreeable man you've ever met. He says things gently, smiles often, pays for dinner. He might even call you darling. And for a while, it feels good. It feels safe. Compared to the chaos of the past, this man feels like a peaceful breeze. But slowly, subtly, something starts to shift. You mention plans with your girlfriends, and he says, "Again? Didn't you just see them last week?" You wear a bright color you love, and he raises an eyebrow. That's bold. Not really your usual, is it? You bring up something important to you, maybe a topic that matters, something close to your heart. And he gently changes the subject. It's not what he says. It's how he says it, with that calm, steady tone. That small smile, that I'm just looking out for you energy. He's not controlling you, or so you think. He's protecting you. He cares. But here's the thing. Over time, you start second-guessing yourself. You start wondering if maybe your friends are too much. Maybe you do talk too loud. Maybe that dress is a little too colorful for your age. You begin to pull back. Edit yourself. Dull your edges. Just a little. And before you know it, you've become smaller. That's how the quiet controller works. He doesn't demand obedience. He simply guides you, slowly, toward a version of yourself that's easier for him to be around. More quiet, less opinionated, more agreeable, less visible. And the worst part, he'll never see himself as the problem. If you speak up, he'll say, "I was just being honest." Or, "I thought you'd want my opinion." Or worse, "You're being too sensitive." That's not honesty. That's manipulation dressed as concern. Now let me say this clearly. You are not too loud. You are not too much. You are not too emotional, too opinionated, too colorful, or too complex. You are a full-grown woman, and you do not need to shrink to be loved. Control doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it sounds like love, until you realize you've lost yourself inside it, and you didn't come this far in life just to make yourself small again. So, if you find yourself with someone who always makes you question your judgment, someone who leaves you feeling unsure, unsettled, or hesitant to be your full self, that's not a relationship. That's erosion. And it doesn't get better with time. It just gets deeper. You deserve to be in a relationship where your confidence grows, not fades, where your voice is valued, not hushed, where your light is welcomed, not dimmed. The quiet controller might seem like the safest man in the room, but he's not safe at all. Not for your spirit, not for your truth, and not for the life you still have left to live. Walk away, and walk tall, because there is nothing more dangerous to a controlling man than a woman who finally remembers who she is. So, my dear friends, if any of these men sounded familiar, you're not alone. Most of us, at one time or another, have tried to love someone who wasn't ready, wasn't right, or simply wasn't capable of giving back what we gave. But here's what I hope you remember. At this stage in life, you are not here to fix people. You're not here to rescue, to babysit, or to settle. You're here to be loved, fully, gently, and without conditions. You've earned that. You deserve that. If this video resonated with you, give it a like, and more importantly, share it with a friend, someone who might need to be reminded that it's never too late to choose peace over pressure. Leave a comment if you've met one of these men. Or, better yet, tell us how you walked away. That's how we build wisdom together. Until next time, this is Wise Elders Insight. Take good care of your heart, and don't ever forget the power of walking away with your head held high.